Hello everyone, I'm aMayesing, so are you? Oh, I'm still moving. I thought I crashed for some reason. And welcome back to another long Dungeons and Dragons video. Yeah. So we have Laren on why Baldur's Gate 3 is incredibly faithful to D&D. And then we have Baldur's Gate 3 with the CEO, Sven Vinnick, on the new endings, strange problems, and the future of Baldur's Gate. And then in the next episode, we're going to be looking at the D&D playtest 7 for Unearthed Arcana, as well as the new classes and secrets, which will be upcoming soon. So, without a further ado, let us suffer together.
It is remarkable how much Baldur's Gate 3 is more than I ever anticipated. And certainly there are plenty of differences here and there, but
Todd again in the shit light.
If you are curious about D&D, play Baldur's Gate 3, and you're going to have a fairly good sense of like the action economy, the weirdness of D&D, the choices that you have and how they affect the game. You've managed to capture so much of that. Well, why was that so important?
Because Laren Studios was fucking amazing in their execution of a game that Wizards of the Coast have completely ruined due to capitalism and greed. Laren Studios made a one-time purchase game where people will be able to use it for all of D&D, right? And any updates that happen are probably free. So instead of paying $200 or $500 or even $1,000 for this Dungeons and Dragons content where you need to try to figure out how you're gonna frickin' build your character, you gotta pay $60 or less if there's a sale, and you're just gonna play test it, and then you can immediately export it into a character sheet, and it's free. That's why it was so faithful, because they knew that they were gonna make more money than Wizards of the Coast would ever make on Dungeons and Dragons.
I think it came from like top down. Like, everyone, like Sven especially, just like massive D&D fans. I think to be the studio that like revised Baldur's Gate, like we had to make it like Baldur's Gate in the modern era, which meant 5th edition. We just wanted the game to kind of like represent like our games we have like at home with like our friends and family. And it has turned into, like you say, kind of this like good introduction for people who like video games, have an interest in D&D. But this sort of like is a nice sort of like cross-pollination of kind of like, all right, this is my gateway drug to D&D now.
If there is a D&D player that has not tried Baldur's Gate 3, how do you convince them? Because I think a big of that...
It's cheaper, it's more fun. Just get a social aspect of it with friends, because Dungeons and Dragons is all about making decisions on the spot, being creative with your imagination being the limit. But Baldur's Gate 3 is a great way to test characters. So, I mean, from a personal standpoint, Baldur's Gate 3 is great for playtesting. Testing your character, testing his level, testing their levels, my apologies. Their levels, seeing where they can go. Dungeons and Dragons is the social experience, being able to sit down with friends, do adventures together, imagining everything, whereas Baldur's Gate is limited in the story that's coded. So, Dungeons and Dragons is a great social experience, but if you want more practice and playtesting with a character before you go into that social experience, play Baldur's Gate 3. So, the reason I would play Baldur's Gate 3 is to learn more about the characters, because with my character that died off in this last campaign that I played, I had so many plans for him. He was going to TPK the party, because that was going to be the ending to our story, but I fucked up. I had a plan written out and I threw it away and I died. I get to do a character and I get to continue that campaign and I'm very excited for it. But Baldur's Gate 3 would help me in learning the spells, learning my turns, learning what's available to me when I do them. It would make me play smarter, it would make me play better, and it would make me get into roleplay so much more. And I think that's why I want to play Baldur's Gate 3.
A big part of the appeal is how much it feels like D&D.
Yeah.
And also how similar it is. Like, how do you convince someone to play D&D, or like, what is your advice to D&D players who want to jump into this video?
I think for anyone coming from D&D into Baldur's Gate, I think we support everything you want to do. All your wild dreams on a tabletop, we tried our absolute hardest to make that, like, what you do with your friends is what you do in the game. Every time we like look at a class, we say, like, what does this class mean to tabletop players? Like, I watch all the videos on YouTube of, like, what do players think about these classes? And, like, what's that vision? Like, what does a barbarian mean to them?
And this is why Baldur's Gate was so good. Larian Studios listens. Wizards of the Coast doesn't really give a fuck.
We tried our absolute best to make it, like, true in the game. And when you're playing the game as well, we do have some slight house rules here and there, but for the most part, like, all your iconic actions are there. All the kind of, like, the big spells, like, we included over 600 spells.
Hold on, I'm gonna use the bathroom. I know it's recording. I'm gonna use it still. It'll be in there. Go grab a snack. Go grab some water. Do something. Alright, I'm back. I'm back. I'm like baby back. I am back. Are you guys ready? Let's get into it again.
Which are directly taken from, like, the player's handbook, and in some special cases, we've
600 spells.
So Wild Magic
Sheesh.
Barbarian isn't from the player's handbook. We just added that because we really thought it was cool, and we thought Barbarian just needed that little bit extra because Wizards get 8 subclasses. And we're like, that's not fair. Come on, Barbarians need some more love. So yeah, everything you love from tabletop that is special about these classes, we brought forward for us. And everything where you and your friends can develop a story with a dungeon master, we've tried our absolute hardest to think of, like, every way to beat a situation. For example, like you spoke earlier about the bank vault, there's 100 ways to break into that bank vault that you find.
What's your advice for people who maybe are now curious about Dungeons and Dragons in terms of the tabletop experience after they've played their character all the way through to level 12?
I'd say my advice is, like, have fun with it and don't stress too much about the rules. If you're with a new group of players, like, you're all learning, like, it doesn't matter if you misinterpret a rule here or there, or if you're indeed joining a group with, like, an experienced DM. Like, if these are people you like and people you get on with, like, you're there for fun. It's not like a tournament match. Like, I quite like Warhammer, but that's such a different vibe. Like, when I go to the table with my Warhammer minis, it is quite fun, but it's competitive, whereas Dungeons and Dragons, like, you might see the DM as your adversary, but your DM, they're there for fun. A good DM will always kind of, like, they want the party to succeed. They want them to kind of think on their feet, and they want them to use that creativity they might have had in Baldur's Gate. You use that on the tabletop as well, and find, like, unique ways to kind of, like, break puzzles, annoy your DM by completely going around the back door and, like, finding the villain that way.
And you have dungeon masters often, like, pretend to kind of be the villains, the players, just to, like, create that kind of, like, nice adversary feel, you know, for, like, the DMs against you, but it's all theatrics, really. Ultimately, they want you to have a good time. They want you to have...
Yeah, so that's the one thing about Dungeons and Dragons. Don't get mad at people who are playing their characters. Now, you do want to make sure that people are actually nice and that you know, you're not actually mad at each other. Because some people can be very attached to their characters, and when they die, they get very sad, mad, emotional, whatever. But a lot of the times you want to roleplay, but you want to roleplay in a way that people recognize that you are pretending, and that you're not actually meaning things that you're saying, meaning things that you're doing. Like, it's part of the gameplay, which a video game is better at doing because it's like, it's obviously in the game. However, in Dungeons & Dragons, if somebody roleplays really well, you might get a little bit hurt depending on the group that you're in. So just make sure that you're communicating like, hey, this is all in game. I have nothing against you. This is all in game.
Yeah.
So you are, in fact, a dungeon master, correct?
Yes.
Reluctant.
Reluctant.
You would like to be a player.
Yes, I love that.
But you are very much stuck in this role of like forever DM.
Yeah, with multiple groups of like my partner's friends being like, we want to try D&D, and I'm like, all right, out comes like Fandelen again.
What dungeon master advice do you have for folks? Has creating Baldur's Gate 3 informed some of how you dungeon master now?
I can't say it's massively changed it. I think like this is gonna sound crazy as someone that like my job is about rules. Is like when I DM, I just break rules all the time. Like hit dice don't mean anything. Like what I'm rolling behind the scenes sometimes is just bollocks. Like there are dice being rolled, but those numbers sometimes are just fudging. Because like it's about story and like bringing people together and just letting people do cool stuff. So as a dungeon master, just play fast and loose rules. Pick the rules that work at times. So there's some structure. But don't be scared to fudge things.
Being that you are involved in systems and everything else, what's your best advice for anyone who's playing these different, there's so many classes and subclasses and all of this. What's your advice for making characters?
I think like don't be scared of what you pick. We will hold your hand. Like we'll
I've been
really
scared.
Advice going for the character creator, and our defaults are usually very friendly. Like this is how you get the best out of the class. Like take these spells, or this passive sounds pretty good.
I do like the ones that are pre-built, or that offer like good options, because there are times where it's like, I don't want to be this character, but then I click on it and it's like, oh, okay.
Good for you. But don't be scared about making mistakes in your choices. Like we have the respec system is quite important to us. Like it's supposed to be a sandbox, so if you don't like your class, fine, scrap it, try something new, and just play with it.
Now we get to see the CEO for the first time.
I know that.
Whoa! First time they had timestamps. That's crazy. So this is Sven Vinnick on New Endings, Strange Problems, and the Future.
That when you were like 15 or 16, you started reading the Dragonlance books, and that was your introduction to D&D. And now you have a D&D video game that is not only one of the most popular video games for D&D of all time, it is also one of the most popular video games of all time. Like this has to be like a heck of a journey for you, right?
Yeah, it's a special feeling. I mean, like I have never considered it that way, the way that you just said, but it's a bit surreal. I mean, we've been work, finish the game, finish the game. Now seeing how much it means to people is really special.
You had to have known you had a very good game on your hands, but you couldn't have known it would take off this much. What has it been like seeing like the fan reaction and then the critic reception all kind of flooded?
We were worried, like, scored 6 out of 10, 7 out of 10, it's going to be a bug, something's going to happen, it's going to break down, everybody's going to hate it. So that was literally our mentality going in, knowing that the content was good, but we were afraid of that. That was the thing that frightened us the most, because it's a very big game, and so we know stuff can go wrong, although the game usually finds a way of settling back on its feet. So we didn't expect it to go this well. I mean, like, we didn't expect that the players were going to react so strongly to it, but I guess the one thing we did know is that everybody that played it had a different story, and that's the thing I think that the most important one is people started talking about it, they all realized my adventure is different than your adventure, which is as it should be, right? And so I think that's been very critical to it, and I'm happy that people are appreciating the way this will put a lot of effort into it.
What you just mentioned there is kind of like the quintessential D&D experience. Like I had this adventure, I'm going to tell you about the time I did this, the time I fought this villain. You can capture this in a video game form because everyone's story is different. there's something you can share with other people. It's not like a linear storyline where it's like, okay, we all play the same game.
Yeah.
Everyone's playing a different game. Like, how did you make this happen? Like, I've loved seeing RPGs my entire life. I grew up with them. I know you grew up with Ultima and everything that's come since. But like, was that one of the things that was critical to capture, that everyone has like a unique outspoken experience?
It's the thing we've always tried to make. It's the game where you get the feeling that the limit is your creativity as a player, what you do with the system that we're giving to you, be it alone or with friends. It's hard. It's not easy to make a game like that.
Yeah.
It's also the reason why I think it was good for us that we went so long into early access, because you learn about the players, you learn the stuff that they do, and you try to.
And that's smart. Like, obviously, people are gonna, once you put it out in early access, people are gonna be like, well, when is the full release happening? Well, it's like, Larian Studios is the only gaming company that has been this intelligent, where they're giving early access to the people who want to buy it, right? The people that are excited about it. They see all the bugs, and then full access comes out and there's no problems. Hogwarts Legacy, Cyberpunk 2077, GTA 5, like all of these games, I don't know if GTA 5 had any bugs, I'm sure it did, but all of these big ass games that came out and then immediately flopped because there were issues with the code, there was issues with the game, there were so many bugs, there was things that weren't working. Like, Larian Studios was intelligent enough to be like, look at all these dumbasses, let's do it better. Now, of course, there were some bugs in their games. I don't know exactly what bugs. I don't know all the bugs that they had, but some of them were still fun, some of them were still interesting, and they fixed any ones that, had issues.
All eventualities are pushed into it. And so we applied that throughout the entire game. We didn't play safe. We said we'll take risks. We know they will probably find a way to break the game, but we have this system of rules that we have for ourselves that allows it to fall back in a way that you will always be able to finish it. And as a player, you'll know, hey, all the shit that's happening right now, that's me. I did that, right? So I mean, I'm okay with it. And that's actually also what you're seeing. Players, there's players that follow the critical path, that they're happy because they got a really polished story experience. And then there's the people that start killing the protagonists and antagonists instantly, and then are surprised that they can actually still continue playing, that the story picks up and says, oh, you did all this stuff, but here's another protagonist for you to kill. And so it takes off like that. And so it was very much the core of the game when we started working on it. Because it had to be a Dungeons and Dragons experience also, which is literally what you have at the tabletop. You come in as a game master, and you don't know what's going to happen. You have an idea in your head, then chaos is going to take off, and it's going to go in all different kinds of directions than you expected, which is the fun part. So that was very, very important for us to put into the game when we started doing it. So we put a lot of effort into it. It's also where that crazy number, 176 hours of cinematics came from, but that was just to cover all
Holy
these
shit!
It's really rewarding to see it work out. So.
You have a background in like data and that type of stuff. You had an interest in this, when you were
176 hours of cinematics. That's a
of
movie.
It's got to be a fun experiment to see all these different choices that all these players have done. You have this great infographic that is like, this is who's playing Paladin, this is who's been rejected by this NPC. Is that fun for you?
I actually don't look at it.
Oh, you don't?
Well, I look at it. I look at the dashboards from time to time, but we have people that look at it. But I try to not do it because otherwise it will influence the creative decisions. And I want to make sure that we keep on investing heavily in things that maybe 0.001% of the audience will see. Because it is important that any journey that you take in your game is going to be equally rewarding. And if you would say, oh, 80% of the players go there and they see that, then what's going to happen is that you're going to put all your effort on the 80% experience, and you're not going to do anything or less on the 20%. And that's not what you should do when you make a game like this, at least in Go. So I try not to be guided too much by it, but obviously I pick things up like this class is more popular than that. They're taking that choice more than that, but it's not we don't let it guide the game development.
Because there have been other CRPGs that are very, beloved, and I know you obviously like them a great deal as well. Blizzard, what were you trying to bring new to RPGs?
Oh, I wanted it
Fun. excitement of a cheaper fucking game and experience.
The AAA RPG driven by systemics that you could play in multiplayer with your friends, and it had to be a cinematic experience. That was the big challenge here. All of the choices and consequences, that was things that we were already doing in the previous games.
I do kind of wish they made it available for 6 players, because that's like the average, but 4 players works too.
Previous games, never at this scale, of course, but we were doing them. And having systems interfere with story, we've started building up a lot of experience in this. But I really wanted it to be like, hey, it's going to be AAA in the way that it's going to be presented to you. And my hope was, and that's what's happening now, is that that's going to draw a new audience. People that actually don't know they like this kind of gameplay, that were turned off by all the systems and the screens, and because it's...
And the expenses and the shit that Wizards of the Coast posted, like, for 100 years, and the Pinkertons that they sent out, and yeah, you're right.
The onboarding of D&D is not an easy thing, but I was fairly convinced that if you do it properly in terms of presentation, you really go overboard with it, a lot of people will be drawn to it. And so we get a lot of people now that are saying, I didn't know I like this, right? And that's probably the most rewarding thing, seeing like, hey, we brought you into a new type of experience that you didn't know, but it's actually a lot of fun, right? Because a lot of people before said, oh, it's very niche, you're crazy putting that amount of money into cinematics and stuff like that for something that's so niche. My standard reply was, guys, I mean, the most popular games in the universe are turn-based. Like, everybody's playing turn-based games on their mobiles, so it can't be that people can't get turn-based games in a video game context. It just doesn't make any sense. And it turns out that at least for the audience that we're having in PG3, that's true.
You know, I've been covering video games for a long time, and I work at D&D. What was alarming about Baldur's Gate 3 is this was like the perfect way to teach people Dungeons and Dragons.
What is your position? I don't know your position. Ken Beck, your television director? Huh? You're a TV director. Todd Kendrick heads up video content for Dungeons and Dragons. Heads up video content. He's just video producer focused on telling stories about Dungeons & Dragons, tabletop games, AAA video games, indie games, comics, cosplay, and films. So he's just a video producer? Hasbro. Jesus. So he's just a video dude. Okay.
And that accuracy between the video game and the tabletop game, obviously there's plenty of differences, but that's what I'm getting. I am having all these friends who didn't play D&D asking me about it because they didn't realize they would be into this experience that you have captured in this game. What was hardest to capture? What was most important to capture? I mean, you've got the dialogue, you got the weirdness, the combat, all of it. Like, what was quintessential D&D to you?
When we started out, one of the key things was the dice, saying like, trust the dice, go with it, roll with it, see what happens. So we put that in everything. Right? And so as you were doing that, you realized, well, you know, if we're going to simplify the rules, and everything that's built around the dice is not going to feel true. So we have to find ways to make those rules be approachable, and there's a lot of rules in the video game. So we have to try to find a way to hide them, but at the same time make them there, so that when you start getting interested in them, that you can find them. And so when we initially put the dice inside of the dialogue, so we made it so prominent, and we said, well, here's advantage, and you can have 2 dice and all that. There were several people within the team that were worried that we were making it too hardcore. But once you started seeing, hold on a minute, this has an impact on my cinematic experience instantly after that dice rolled, it has you, because then you start, oh wait, I can manipulate this, shadow heart, this guidance, and so it's like, oh wow, this is really cool. And then you're off, and everybody can throw dice. There's nothing complicated about the dice, right? It's just really about presenting.
Dude, this is a lie. There is some weird shit that goes on with rolling Dungeons & Dragons dice. Sometimes you are freaking A game, and sometimes you are bad. I don't know what is wrong with my hands, but I roll for shit. And as a spellcaster, that's not good.
Concepts. And so when you see people play at the tabletop, it's the dungeon master as well. This is how this works, and if they're good, they're going to do it very slowly and introduce people, and people get into it, and before you know it, they're min-maxing all over the place, and that's essentially what the game does also. You see a lot of people, by the end of Act 1, they finally probably figured something out that they could have been doing in the beginning of the game, but it's fine, it has you, and it allows you to play it, and then often people restart, because now they say, oh, now I know how this stuff works, I'm going to start doing these things. I see them cast Guiding Bolt to get advantage, and they figured it out, right? And they're happy, and that's the cool part, because there's depth to the system that's been ingrained based on Dungeons & Dragons and all the testing that has gone into that. So they start getting that that's an expression of their choice space inside of the game, and the rewards that you get, the reactivity from the game world to you mastering the system contains a lot of fun in its own. And so when it's all brought together, it's actually very easy to roll into it, because it just lets you do stuff. You just press buttons and things happen, and you don't know in the beginning, and then you start grasping it. And I guess a lot of board games is the same thing. Right? So
We have split screen now with PlayStation 5. You have referred to this as couples mode.
yeah,
Why was that such an important
That's
thing for you
cute.
on the console?
I love my wife. I love playing with her, and so some of our fondest memories was playing World of Warcraft, sitting next to one another. She was pregnant. My son grew up to be an incredible gamer as a result of that.
Nice.
But there were games like Dark Alliance back in the days that played split screen, right? And those were really special because it's on singular screen, in your living room, and so setting up on the PC is different than lying in your couch. So I always enjoyed those split screen moments, and I wanted to bring that into an RPG that was also narrative driven, because that you didn't see before. And so here with BG3 now, you got romance in the game, so you get this incredible experience where you're sitting with your partner and you're romancing somebody in the game, and it leads to really interesting, emotionally engaging moments, right? And so that's
no.
so I love it. It's great,
Oh,
right?
no.
Because like it's literally because couples are different, and so it's typically really you're going to do that? Of course I'm going to do that. What do you expect me to do? And so that's unique, and so it creates even more engagement in the relationship. So I really enjoyed the fact that split screen was there, and the team did a fantastic job bringing arguably a complicated system into like office screen. It's not a lot of real estate to bring it, but it's
Sorry, I have a
Do
job.
you still find it inspiring because
contacting me.
we talked about the fact that you read those Dragonlance books growing up. I was about the same age when I read them, and I had always had D&D in my life like since I was 8. But like that's when I really that was like the right age, the right time to get like really sucked in by fantasy, by Dragonlance. What do you find inspiring today?
You're asking me my next game.
Wait.
Inspiring today. Right time to get like really sucked in by fantasy, by Dragonlance. What do you find inspiring today?
You're asking me my next game. So I'm not going to answer that. Well, I've always had an interest in both sci-fi and fantasy, and some other things. But then when it comes to entertainment, those were also always meant to go do things. I
So
explored
cool.
D&D. Dragonlance was my first one, so I bought everything. I had this huge case that I ordered, like full of old books and secondhand books, and I just kept on reading. I overread fantasy. Because today I'm very picky because I read so much of it. So it's like no, I've seen that before. That's the problem with saturation of something that you love. So it's but there's a couple of really good things out there.
But you can't tell me. No. That's fair. You've cultivated like an incredibly creative team.
Jesus.
What has been the most important for you in terms of learning studios to have like a very creative, healthy team, and you always, even though you're clearly all working very hard, you have extreme fun and these kind of, hell from hell moments and stuff like that. Like, I don't get the sense you ever do take yourselves too seriously.
No, we don't. I mean, the most important thing to the team actually is the players, their reactions. So we have a lot of player empathy within the studio, thinking about what it's going to be like. They care a lot. If we have arguments, it's because we fucked up someone. So that's where the arguments come from, because, oh shit, that was not how it was, or that was boring, or we broke that. So that is the biggest source of discussions. But I think that's honestly the unifying thread. It's just care for the player experience. Right now, I mean, their thumbs are hurting from reading reviews and like looking at what you're saying, and you would say like,
Jesus, that mimic is horrific.
No, it's all about that. That's not working. We gotta fix that. We gotta do that. That's the thing that you're seeing everywhere. So that's and that's what I love about it.
It's a hard thing to shut down when you were in that mode for 5 years.
Yeah,
like even
exactly.
when you've had this tremendous success, you're still making the game. Like the patches have been coming out very fast.
Yeah.
I am not.
Yeah, because D&D sucks with their updates, and when they do update, it's shit. Yeah, game patches with Laren have been immensely fast and amazing. I mean, when they see a problem, they fix it. I mean, it's crazy the amount of updates I've seen.
How are you turning these patches around so quickly? And you're also adapting to player feedback very fast.
So we set up our studio that it can work 24 hours. So we have studios in Malaysia. Canadian studio.
Oh, that's smart. So 8 hours, 8 hours, 8 hours. And then somebody else has 8 hours, I think.
Basically pass on work.
Cool.
So that's one of the secrets of Laren. So as the sun rises, work can be done. So that means that if somebody in Europe made a feature, by the next day they will know if it worked or not because it went through QA.
Oh, they have 4 studios. Oh, so each Baldur's Gate has different time zones because it's in different parts of the world. I think America is first, and then it's Europe, and then the rest of the peeps. Okay.
In Malaysia, they'll know by the time they wake up because Canadian QA will pick it up and will say,
That's
hey,
awesome.
This is something that's not working, or you gotta fix that and so forth. So that's one part of that secret. The other bit is that we have a lot of automated testing going on. So we have a lot of systems that tell you before you even made the changes, like you broke it, right? Go and fix it again. So that helps also. So we invested a lot in that. So we're taking the benefit of that now, and that allows us to be very reactive to what we're seeing in the community. And we just also have a very dedicated team. Like there was, for instance, a criticism on one of the epilogues with Karlak. So within the week, I just check my facts. I think it was within the week. Samantha, the actress, was called back.
Oh,
we
wow.
automated all of our systems, so that was recorded. I mean, the first scene was written, that went fast. Then that was recorded just using the pipeline that's been set up. Went to the Semantics team. They spent 2 weeks working on putting everything in, and then it just rolled into whatever the next patch or hotfix was on the pipe, and then just plugged it in there. And that's really cool to see. So we'll keep on doing
Holy
that.
Larian and you are so player focused. That's been evident in every game that you've put out there, and is like you've always been very transparent and always heavily focused on the players. And now this game is just completely shot off. That isn't not. It can't just only be about how great the video game is. It's also about how you approach talking to players and how you try to make yourself a great experience.
That hasn't changed, honestly. That's been day one. That's always been there. If you go back to our forums and our oldest archive threads, you will see, because then we can still, we're engaging instantly with them, discussing features and how to do that. We can't do that anymore because it's just too big. So it's we have to do some abstraction, but it's literally, I have this little game I play with dev teams, and I ask them when we go to there or something like, why are you doing this? Why are you making video games? And you get 2 answers in general. You will have the answers, and that's typically the engineers. I want to solve complicated problems. Video games are complicated, really, really complicated. So if you want to really have quantum physics level of complication, video games actually can offer that to you in trying to solve things. So that's one answer that you get. And then the second one will always be, I'm doing this because I want to create fun. I want to entertain people. And I get my kicks from seeing people entertained.
Yep.
So Darren has just been set up so that it allows developers to have that. So and you can only do that really well if you basically remove all barriers between developer and player as much as you can. So and there's risks with that. Things can go wrong in that because sometimes you're too open or you say something wrong without intending to be wrong. So, if you don't do that, then it becomes very siloed. You can't really do stuff siloed.
It's interesting because Baldur's Gate doesn't specifically have like one genre, right? You can kind of express the genre that you want for yourself because you've given so many choices. I found it so alarming. Since second edition, I've been a fan of Wild Magic. Back when it was with Wizards, and I remember I got the Tome of Magic and everything else, and I get so few chances to play, and I played it in Baldur's Gate. And not only is my Wild Magic search happening and completely changing the game as randomly with like big boss fights and all kinds of stuff, but I talked to someone, they know I'm a Wild Magic sorcerer, and it's not just there's a dialogue that says they know I'm a Wild Magic sorcerer. They're saying things about my subclass.
Yeah.
That's an alarming amount of detail. I know everyone wants like to go past level 12, but like it feels like there's like 100 games in this one game. Like I know everyone's going to be replaying this over and over and being a different experience. I don't have a question. I'm just
You're surprised by it.
This is I'm being a terrible interviewer. Was there a moment like you're just like, this is insane what we're trying to do? I've never seen that many options in a CRPG.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that because we thought we weren't putting enough in. So we were so focused on making sure
There's like
that the identity you created
usually like 5 or 6
reflected inside of the game. It was very important to us that if you picked that Wild Magic sorcerer, that you were going to feel that you were that Wild Magic sorcerer. And D&D happens to have a lot of classes and subclasses, so that meant quite a lot of work. But it was never about not doing it. It's what I meant earlier when we chatted, and I said like, that 0.01% needs to have their proper experience because they picked that subclass, and we offered it to you. I learned a long time ago, our first games were very ambitious, but we didn't really manage to fulfill the ambition within the game because we didn't really fully support the features. And from the criticism on those games, I learned that it's really important if you put a feature in there, you have to go full Monty, which means you can speak with animals, you can speak with every animal. You can speak with that, you can speak with, the trick that we use is like any dead that still has their head. so you will see a lot of decapitated people in the game. Well, that's literally how we solve that.
That's your cheat?
That's my cheat, yeah.
Well, how people getting decapitated in this game?
There's a lot of decapitations going on, or very old bodies. But that's you have to support it like that. So when you say that you're going to have reactivity to your class or to the race that you picked, then you have to put it in there, and it has to be meaningful, which means that you actually need to have moments that are really about you, about your Wild Magic sorcerer. And we tried to put that for everything. So we literally tracked down and said like, we need to have enough for everything across the game. So it was a team dedicated to that. So it's really rewarding to see it pay off because indeed, when you're playing in multiplayer, for instance, you see just, what? I can do that? And you didn't get any of that. Well, yeah, it's because you're just fighting.
The decapitated head solve is amazing to me. Yeah. Were there other instances of this where you're like, well, maybe like we have to hide bodies, we have to do this, like so like you didn't get overworked? Were there any other weird fun facts about this game that people don't know?
But it was a biggest source of discussions within team was always like, yeah, but I can't do that. Like for instance, we wanted to do Dispel Magic for a long time. It was on the table, but then it just became too much because there's so much magic in the game. Like, and it was always, what if I come in and I do Dispel Magic? And so, oh my head is exploding. Right, so so that's why you don't have Dispel Magic in the game. There's actually still traces within.
Oh, so because in Dungeons and Dragons you just dispel one spell, but in Baldur's Gate you have to code. You have to code the spell to stop if this spell is going, and then you'd have to do another spell. Yeah, I can see why you wouldn't want to do that.
Say, they actually foresaw that and they wanted to do it, and we wanted to, but it was just too much. It was literally double the size of the game, just to support that one spell properly.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Do you play D&D yourself, the tabletop game?
My version of D&D is playing with the kids in the car. So I basically come up with a story, and then they say, so and I say, what do you do? And they say what they do, and then I roll fake dice in my head, and then I tell them what the outcome is.
Narratively, like, what is the thing that gets you excited? Like, what is an important story that you want to tell? And obviously that story, mainly it's you handing it to the player to create that story, but what are the story elements that got you most excited for Baldur's Gate 3?
Baldur's Gate 3, the themes that we put forward from the beginning were survival, trust. Those were very important ones. Transformation became one through development. Obviously, you had the mind player, but it wasn't the initial main theme. But ultimately, then when we looked at it, we said, "Oh my God, there's a lot of transformation stories in here." So we started doing that. But it was really about trust. You're put into a very difficult situation, and you're people that by nature distrust each other. And that are some of them are set up to have conflict with one another. So how does that grow? So that was the thing I thought was very interesting about the game, and the writing team really pulled off some unique moments throughout. It was very complicated because you got all that freedom, and you still needed to have all that party relationship, all that companion relationship going on. So there was it feels good because you start with this group of trustful people, and depending how you play, you end up with a band of friends that will go through fire for one another, and that's the essential part of the combining experience. So I think that's probably the biggest one for me. That feeling like, hey, I didn't like in the beginning, like a lot of people like Lysel, which is a very deep character. At the end of the game, I said, wow, right? So I didn't know all of that was going on. Shadowheart, same story. I didn't know all of that was going on. There's a lot of people that say, oh my God, when they get into Act 3. So that's, those are the biggest narrative rewards I found.
What do you like about video games, like compared to every other medium, like movies, like tabletop, like podcasts, books, whatever? Like, what is it about video games that excites you so much?
Well, it's the ability to have a narrative that you can modify, right? So, and that goes, even if it's a very systemic-driven game, there's always a story in your head, and you are the one that is changing the pieces. And the game shows you, okay, well, you did this, now it's the new state, and you can react to that. So it's that engagement loop that's continuous is the thing that I always was attracted to in video games. Is what we really try to put in games like DG3. But also big strategy game nerds.
That's the alarming thing is there's so many people I know have learned so much about D&D through Baldur's Gate 3, or there are articles that have been written as well about this, but I'm witnessing it in my own players of everyone's become very tactical suddenly. You've kind of changed the landscape for D&D tabletop because some people are just like, oh, if I'm up here, or knocking people around is everything, and the number of times people are asking about if can I shove. So it's had an effect, across genres.
Yeah.
That's what's been really exciting. That's got to be very gratifying for you to see, like, okay, this thing's in a video game, but now it's affecting tabletop players at the same time.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. So I hadn't looked at it like that, but that is cool. I mean, like that's the benefit of the video game, right? So I'm pretty sure now that you mentioned that verticality will become a thing. Because we put a lot of verticality in the game, in the landscape, using surfaces and things like that. I had this great story that I got yesterday from a streamer, and she was super excited because she found a way of killing a boss, and so she sent me a video. And so it's in the Underdark, and there's a moment when there's like big hammers, like mechanical hammers coming out of the sky, and you get crushed when you're under it, and you get killed. You can control them with a lever, which is further away. And so what had she done? She had taken herself with the boss that was chasing her. It was a really hard boss. She had come to stand, and there's lava all around her. So she put herself on the spot where the hammer was going to come down. The boss is standing next to her. She dropped a healing potion on the floor. Then she shot the lever. Right? The lever is triggered because she shoots at it, so there's force on it. The hammer comes down, killing her and the boss, but it also destroys the healing potion. The fluid comes out of the healing potion. The healing affects her, it doesn't affect the boss because it's a mechanical boss. And so she survives, and that's how she kills the boss. It's beautiful. Yeah, I love it.
You must love complexity.
I do, yeah.
The fact that there are that many different interactions, is there
Jesus.
like just a weird interaction team, or like is it that process you just told me about of like, well, can we do this? Can we do this? Why can't we do this? I'm going to want this. The fact that you have a healing potion that can break as someone dies and bring them back, that is bonkers to me. That is such a level of complexity.
But
no one's expecting.
Yeah, we didn't foresee that one ourselves. Like, so that's just the. But we try to make our systems intuitive. So if you got a potion, I break it, food has got to come out, or a gas got to come out.
Yeah.
It's sense, right? Then you can start playing with that. So we if you look at our video games, one after the other, we do more and more and more of that. And so there's the everybody knows about the Baulder now. It's heavy, so it can do a lot of damage. But there's the throwing gnomes party. There's a YouTuber. There's 4 of them. There are 4 gnomes and doing really crazy stuff by throwing it. So it's fun. It's a lot of fun, right? So we put those systems in there for you to abuse them in that sense. So our thing really is bring that level of systemic freedom and marry that with narrative and make that work in all cases, scale the as it can get, and try to get better and better at that. It's really the focus of how we approach the video game.
Was there a moment for the video game, like while you were developing, where you were like, that's it, that's what we've been chasing, that's what we're trying to capture?
There has been in BG3, there have been moments where I said, okay, this is really, really good. So there are certain narrative moments where the cinematics, the sounds, the music, the visuals, they all come together, and then the line is delivered, and you say, wow, it's really, and you go silent. You know, you're sitting there, and you look at it, and you say, okay, that was cinema quality experience here. Except I caused all this to happen. This is here now because of my choices, which is the very special thing. So that's, I think, and BG3 is the thing I'm the proudest of, that we achieved that we managed to do that. And at the same time, mixing all the craziness, like what I just said with the healing potion, right? So you have those 2 things combined. It's a type of video game I like.
It's crazy.
When I started making video games, I had that sense, obviously not at this level, of a game called Ultima 7, which has been shining lights for forever. But I got that sense of wonder and exploration and adventure and interaction and the
Ultima 7. Oh, damn. 1992. That was number 7?
ability, because you could stack crates in that game already and make stairs to get there. It was crazy. Yeah, right. So
it felt like the future at the time.
Exactly, yeah. And then it got shut down because we got this entire wrong distribution model back in the days. So that sense, chasing essentially for every single video game. So I'm happy with what we did, but we can still do better.
Does this feel like a moment in your career, or is it always on to the next game? This is to have this much critical acclaim, to have this many fans, and it is only just begun. I'm going to be hearing about Baldur's Gate 3 for 20 years from now. I know I am. Like, you must know that on some level as well. This is a massive career.
Not really. That hasn't. And yes, you're right. I'm busy on the next game. I mean, I never play my games again when they finished. Right? So, it's really funny that you ask it. It's the right moment to ask me, actually, because yesterday morning I was in Quebec and I woke up in my bed and I called my wife and said, well, my black hole has arrived because the PS5 version is shipping. We just uploaded it, so I'm done. So I'm going to move on to the next game. The other team is going to be working, so there's going to be patches and demos and stuff like that. But for me personally, this creative path, it's done now, right? So I am closing the chapter, and then every game developer will tell you that when you've finished, there's always this black hole because you've been under adrenaline for so long, and you've been working towards this cliff, and then it's like, hey, I reached the point, and now
you don't want to relax for like
start again, but you have to
2 weeks.
Take time for yourself, break. So when people ask us what's next, it's a break. But you're already thinking about the next thing because you've been sitting on it for some time already. So there's a lot of stuff that's already moving in that direction. And eagerness to start working on it. But you do have to take a moment because this is very intense industry.
It's not the same, but Dungeon Masters, after the 3-year campaign, they end that stuff, and then you have this kind of weird, like, well, I'm thankful I have my Sundays free for a while, but also like now there's this kind of black hole, like you experience, like you're doing it because of the fun of like you were developing a game. Not because you're trying to
get burnout.
Exactly. Panel from Hell, as I am clearly in video. I love how like fun Panel from Hell is. It is not your typical like dev update or anything. It's just like I hope it's a moment for all of you to like enjoy yourselves and goof off a little bit in between games.
It's they're a lot of fun, right? So we all enjoy them, and a lot of team bonded over it, just watching them because they enjoyed it themselves. The afterwards, I did this well. I enjoyed that, so they were very vocal in their feedback a lot. But they were just a lot of fun. I mean, it's just moving around, talking about something you've been caring about for a long time, which is
That's gonna hurt.
Trying to show off all the stuff that you're proud of because you just made it at that moment in time. So usually the features are very fresh, which also means that just before there's a lot of stress, it's going to break live, and so forth. Which happened actually on our final battle from Hell. There was a moment where I wanted to show off two different versions. So Adam, our lead writer, was doing one version of an encounter with the rider.
Battle from Hell? We're doing our homework. No? No idea.
Right now we're going to do the other version of the encounter with the Strider, and it's because somebody else in the team was also showing something up they had been rehearsing, so they overwrote my save games.
That's right. Oh, yeah, I remember that.
And I'm like there, I said, what the fuck? And so then in my summer armor, because it was way too hot to follow, I tried to on stage try to cheat my way to the point, but I fucked it up. And so that was like I've always done it, so we know we have some leeway with the fans. They know that it's genuine, right? It's not a pre-scripted path through. I mean, we know which path we're going to take, but it's. Yeah. I did that press tour at that moment, and there were people that were in the audience twice, and they had completely different presentations just because of dice draw. And it was great, right? But I had to improvise everything. But that's literally what the game gives you, and that's what you're hearing from everybody also. And so I was at the show floor here on PAX, and there were people that came to me and said, I did 3 plays of this game, and they're all different, right? Just because stuff went wrong. So but it's been made to give you that. It's literally its purpose. So I'm happy to do those stories.
What do you think is the most important when you're trying to tell a story with other people? Because that's what you've effectively done, is you are essentially a dungeon master to, I assume, millions of players. That's what you've done. So what's your advice for like those who want to tell stories?
Respect choice. Don't say no. So that's probably it. I mean, like this has been the thing, like. Because very often when we were making situations for this, and what if I do this? And the reaction is really to the credit of the team. Is not, oh no, we're going to block that off. No, how can we make it happen, right? And so I imagine that when you have your campaign in your head and you want to get them, and you say, I want to go and defeat Tiamat, whatever, it's going to be like, well, and I did this, and then you could just block it and not do it, but you really should go with it, even if you have to throw away your story. Because then just go with that. So it's like so roll with your players essentially.
What's your best advice for people who are playing Baldur's Gate 3 or haven't tried Baldur's Gate 3 yet? Like how do you coax them in? So many D&D players are actually excited to play Baldur's Gate 3 because it has like again captured that experience. What's your advice for a player?
Just try things. Like the game has a lot of like what we just talked about with the healing potion. That's the kind of stuff that you're not going to plan for, so it's just keep on trying things. I mean, and you will often find that the game will react to it, even if you didn't expect it, because you're not used to it. So, and there's a lot of effort was put into failure in the game, so dice went wrong. So don't necessarily reload if you can't manage to convince someone or something. You just see what happens. So it's, there's room for a lot of experimentation. You will be very well rewarded. The more you explore and the more you try things out, the more you actually will be rewarded.
You mentioned the spell magic and how that was kind of going to be a game breaking, or the whole game could just become about the spell magic and how it affected the map and everything else. Do you have a list of spells that were just like, oh, these are tough, but you still have them in the game?
Animal handling, animal can speak with animals. So just the idea that we did both of them is like added so much dialogue to the game, and so much effort because, but it had to be there, right? Because it's very different to handle an animal than to speak with the animal, right? So that was an extensive one. That was, I think, speak with dead also. So I said, all the dead bodies in the game. So we put in the 5-question rule in there also, so you could only ask 5 questions. So that was a bit limiting. I'm not sure if that was as good as we wanted it to be. I think this guise has definitely caused quite some systemic issues for us at the development front. I mean, but it works. And so that is I did a thing with it.
I know I'm not putting like a lot of feedback into this. I just want to stop here. My girlfriend is texting me. It's 7:56, and I have a job application thing. So today is crazy.
So we're using seeding, which was really cool. Like ice in the back, and then we got also and one of the preparations I did for that we did seeding. So it's fun, right? So it's so that kind of thing. So those are things that require a lot of effort from a development point of view. But I'm happy that they're in there because it's not what you expect to find. So it's good when you find these things. Like the Bard also. I mean, if you see how much effort went into the Bard, I never played a Bard in my life. Even close to touching it. I have changed though. Actually, I have admitted that. But with Original Sin 2, when we did the Kickstarter, we actually had a poll.
Sin 2, dude. This man is speaking words I don't know. What is Sin 2? Not math. This one? Back in 2017. It's on Steam for 60% off. What the fuck? Oh, this is... This looks exactly like Baldur's Gate almost. Well, different creatures. Huh. Interesting.
My head of production, he said like we should do it with Bard, and I said, well, we should do a polymorph class for sure. We should not be doing Bard. Nobody likes playing Bard. So the audience agreed with me, so they all went for the polymorph class. So we put that into the game then. But here with what the team did on the Bard and then playing together and then some music streaming in and then all the insults, all the taunts that you could do, I find it was really well done. But yeah, it was again a lot of effort trying to support non-combat interactions, right? So that's what they do. Well, why am I playing this music? Well, you play music, you do well, you get money. So people start throwing coins at you. Right? So that became then a decoy tactic. So people started using that to rob places because they had their bards playing music. People come to watch, in the meantime they steal something. So it's great. It's again that role playing that comes out of your system. You creating your own story.
Is there something you're gravitating? Because you mentioned you're not really a bard person, like. What kind of person are you? Everyone's always a wizard? Okay, why is that? Is it again the complexity, the number of choices?
Yeah. So I hate the spell slow system. Right? I mean, like my lead gameplay programmer had to explain to a really competent engineer who has a PhD what spell slows are, and for an hour, right? So before he actually understood it.
Spell slots are a bit complex. Yeah. When I was teaching my own wife D&D, it came up, and I'm like, this is hard to explain.
It's really, really hard to explain, right? I mean, ultimately, when you get it, it's straightforward, but it's hard to explain. So that kind of thing.
I have to ask, what type of is there a subclass of wizard you enjoy? I tend to gravitate towards necromancer just because, having a bunch of undead friends.
So evocation wizard, because that allows me to do the elemental shenanigans, and it gives my party immunity to it. But necromancer would be my second pick.
Has there been one big surprising thing, like someone's gone back to you, like because you are seeing all these streams now and you've been on streams with people, you were with Matt Mercer, like stacking crates and trying to break the game, but you seem to love that stuff.
That's it. That's what I love about the game, right? So stacking crates on top of a house to be able to just jump in or fly in, that's exactly what I want people to do in this game. That's what it's made for. That's why we build those systems.
I
in there.
completely missed
What's
that.
the craziest thing I've seen? I gotta say, what the Luality is the name of the streamer with the healing potion.
Yeah.
That is a level of complexity. I wouldn't have thought of it. Typically, when I demo the game, I try to find combinations like that just to show it off. Like we did the gaseous form, break into the counting halls. So through a pipe. It's fun, right? The game allows you to do that, and that was not pre-programmed, by the way. So that was not pre-scripted at all. But the rule was that you had to be a tiny creature to be able to get through a pipe. So I went to system design and said, well, if I'm a cloud, surely.
Yeah.
And he looked at me, he said, I don't know. Right? He says, I don't know, he says, right? But normally, if they did their jobs, so talking of his other system designer, I guess so. And I went through it and it was, hey, like a child. I was so happy that it worked. I thought it's so cool. So I definitely got to show that because it's just, it's one of those things is we set up these rules for our designers and then they start and they work and everything clicks like clockwork. And you get these, this is the outcome that you get at the end of the gameplay.
This has been such an achievement. Like, what is key to having like such a healthy and like driven, creative team?
Giving them ownership. I think that's the most important bit. So you need to give the developers ownership over the things that they're creating. Like all the Bard stuff. I'm not the guy to design the Bard. I clearly don't play Bard, but there was a group that was really passionate about the Bard and came up with this fantastic Bard implementation. Like you're interviewing Ross at some point. So Ross is the monk guy, right? So the monk is his, so he will be able to tell you a lot about the monk. I think that's the most important bit. You find people with things in the game that fits what they're interested in. You give them ownership to do their stuff. Obviously, you need to have it directed a little bit in the same direction, but you'll get the best results like that. So I don't really believe in big top-down monolithic, that's how you're going to do it. This is the formula, right? And we're going to apply the formula. No, you get much better results by giving freedom to your team and ownership of doing things, and then giving them room to fail also. Because I mean, you can't be creative if you can't fail, and that doesn't work. You will fail a lot when you're being creative because you have to have the freedom to explore what I call the search tree of creativity, right? So sometimes you hit a dead end, you don't know because you don't explore it. But exploring takes time also, so you need to create the time. So I think that's probably my the thing that we do more and more in our development. Obviously, because we have more resources than we used to have. Last we were always time constrained, budget constrained. That's not as tight anymore as it used to be, and so that makes a difference. So we can be more open. But it's important that freedom of exploration is there.
You talk about spell magic also being a breaking thing. Levels.
You
1
just
through
said
12,
to spell
you might
magic
go to-
like 3 times.
After 12, things get pretty nuts in D&D. That's when like the spells get just world-shattering, hard to capture in a
I don't
video
even
game
know
stuff.
why you have
That is why we're
20th level.
keeping it to 1 to 12 for Baldur's
Yeah.
Gate.
Yeah.
That also makes it hard to do DLC if you were ever tempted.
Yeah, well, you could do different things, and so it doesn't have to be necessarily at the end of the game. So there's different ways that you can do that. But you could make a level 12 to 20 game as a different game. Right?
Yeah.
So it's completely, you would approach it completely differently. So yeah, that would different stakes, different environments, most likely, different protagonists. But not undoable.
Has there been something from the fan community that has like shocked you, like in terms of like just fantastic art and cosplay, something that was like really inspiring?
Yeah, no, it's crazy. It's social media is full of it. Songs, drawings, videos. Somebody did a puppeteer show. It's great. It's really this is rewarding. We have a hole that we're filling in our studio with just with artwork from fans. Right? So it's really nice. It's really nice to work with. To see it. Graphic novels, comics. It's really.
Is it weird celebrating kind of like you mentioned, like okay, PlayStation 5 launched today as we're talking?
Yeah.
You're walking the show floor at the PAX amongst all these gamers who are excited to drop by the booth. That's a moment.
Yeah,
right? That's got to be a little surreal.
Yeah, I tweeted this yesterday because I'm in the hotel room.
Yeah.
By coincidence, they put me in the same room where we launched the Kickstarter for Season 2. So I was full nostalgia of memories because we were all crammed in that room, like everybody from the dev team and publishing team that was working, typing and doing updates and reacting to the interaction back then. But now I was alone in my room. So not that was a sad moment, but I was there and I was remembering seeing all the people around me and the activity that we had in it. It says like we're watching PS5, but it's dumb. It's like that's what I said. So yesterday I was in my dumb mood. I was like I woken up, told my wife, told her about it. Like my black hole has arrived because it's dumb. So I have there's a bit of me that's like that I have shed. So because it's now in the past. So that's the same feeling I'm having today, right? I'm really happy. I was doing an interview at the show floor just before I came here, and I saw all these people playing in split screen controller, and it looked great on the TVs. I felt very proud about how visually striking it was, and already they were all in different circumstances, so that was also cool to see how that was working. But it felt like, okay, this is done. It looks done. So I know. Because if I say that we'll have an entire fans that are saying, well, we need this, and this, that's all coming. I mean, the team will.
Is there anything that you want to express to fans that you haven't already? And here at the end of all of this, this massive journey you've had?
I just want to thank them. I mean, like it's impossible to make the game that we made without what we got from the early access community. I mean, there were a lot of people there that were there throughout the entire journey. Reddit, they had their community updates that they gave every week where they were saying
that's smart.
The game that we'd like to see to change. It's like that's been huge. It's been a huge help.
I didn't even think about Reddit.
We want to do it differently. I don't know if we're going to do another early access. I can imagine that we do. I mean, but
why?
It's been sometimes it's frustrating. So it was without that part of the journey it would not have worked. So I'm very grateful for them, and also actually even now, right? I mean, like we have bugs in the game, so they pop up, but they're very understanding. They have patience in that sense also. We're frustrated when we see those things, so we don't want them to be in there, but they're helpful in sending us the feedback, telling us this is what I did, this is how it happened, and so that allows us to fix it. So somebody else's journey later on will be better as a result of that. So that is I think we really had the symbiosis between developer and player community that came to life in G3. I think that's also one of the reasons why the game turned out to be as good as it is. So if you had to do this in your silo, I don't think you would have managed very well.
That's the same thing for making such an amazing game, because what we talked about earlier, where you would have all this fantasy coming at you from all these angles, books, and consume all of it, but you get more critical the more you do.
Yeah.
Baldur's Gate 3 is one of those wonderful things, especially for me who used to review video games. I get to this stuff allowed me to be a fan. I just got so excited about all of it, and I'm trying to squirrel it away and play it as slowly as I can. You've done a remarkable job. All of you. So, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
That was a painful one. Not as painful as this freaking D&D play test we're gonna be watching tomorrow. That's an hour long. My green screen died. Okay. Well, it's 8 o'clock. I'm ready for bed. Oh, that was brutal. It was good. I mean, that was really cool to see. But that hurt. That hurt a lot. Yeah. So we got playtest stuff. Apparently there's a new barbarian path and a new fighter path. And then we have secrets of the D&D dungeon mastering on the 12th, which is next Tuesday. Anyways, see you guys in the next one.